There. Okay, I got it. All right. So hopefully we won't have any more glitches. Anyway, this is a talk about side gardens. And I am an MD, an advanced master gardener, an ARG, an avid rabbit gardener, and a gen I'm going to call a genealogist. I got this idea to do side gardens because some people in Michigan wanted to see the one side garden I have there, and they were well, all of my garden, but they were really impressed by all the things that I stuffed into the side garden. So he said, "Ooh, can you give a lecture on this?" And I ended up doing that. But I thought, well, I don't want to just have photos of my side garden. Really, it would be nice to also discuss things like uses for various side gardens, design principles, things to consider about the site. A lot of side gardens are shady. And I'll be using most of these pictures, not the starting one, but most of them are from my 20 years of photographing various master gardener gardens, and they are beautiful. I put down almost all the things I could think of in the handout. It's extensive, so hopefully you don't have to take notes. You can just sit back and relax. So in this lecture, we're going to be covering some, and I hope you get at least one or two ideas out of it, or just enjoy seeing blooming things on a day like today in Illinois. So I'll be covering the uses, the design principles, things to consider, and then after that, what I've learned from my side gardens in Illinois and in Michigan to illustrate the principles and give ideas. Along the way, I'll also be giving information on great plants or combinations and some tips. And if we have time, which I hope we do, I wanted to show you what I consider a fantastic side garden as a bonus feature at the end. So side gardens can be, come on, projector. Oh, it's not working again. Not just a freeway to the back, but a pleasant highway to heaven. Side yard uses. Okay, it's now advancing and I didn't do that. They can be decorative. They can be very productive with vegetables or herbs. If it's off the kitchen, a very quick path to your edibles. Utilities are often stored on the side garden, such as the air conditioner or other things. I use it also for storage, such as a compost, wheelbarrows, supplies, bags of this and that, and bricks or stone steppers. It can also be a nursery for small plants. If you have hellebore seedlings, you might want to grow them more in a side nursery before you plant them out in the rest of your garden, or for healing in plants you just got because you ordered them from the spring catalogs that are out now. It's also a good area to use for hardening off, especially if there's some type of windbreak or a small fence there. But as with any gardens, the front, the back, or whatever, on a side garden, consider these design principles. Color. You can produce color with plants or plant combinations, various objects. Texture. It's nice to have a fine texture and a bold texture in any of your garden plantings. Form is a nice thing to think about too. Upright forms or mounding or leaping forms combined make the whole area more interesting. Focal point. To focus your eye on, slow down the journey as you're going along your side of your house. Pathways are helpful because they lead you to another area. Repetition of plants is a good thing to do too. Plants, or at least the repetition of color, to pull the eye onward and make the area more cohesive with your front or back yards. And transitions help blending one area into another. Things to consider. Is your side yard mostly sun or is it shade? This is a sunny side yard, and they've got arborvitae for a screen there and lots of wonderful blooming annuals and other plants. This yard over here, there's a lot of shade there. You've got fence shade, the tall wall of a house, and even though it looks lovely now, this is probably in shade quite a bit of the time. So planting a daisy there is delightful, but might be better in that particular area with the amount of shade to combine various colored foliage for better interest there. So heuchera and hostas are staples of a shade garden. This is a delightful area. This is up at the very front of the house. Beyond this lattice work or lattice fence is a parking area in the street, but they cordoned that off and made a very private sitting area, made it more interesting with potted plants, clematis, climbing this arbor, focal points, and even a cute little birdhouse at the top. So you can do a lot. And this is right in the front of their house, but on the side too. This is a wooded side garden with a steep ravine off. So the most of it you'll see here with all sorts of great plants. And then there's a very steep drop off here. If you were to continue through on this path, this is the direction it goes down to the lake. This is in Effingham. And they like to sit on their screen porch, but they've got a good view of the woodland right there. And because this is so nice, in the middle of the house, they built this deck so they can sit here and have coffee, or I guess in the evening, cocktails, and that's their view. So a bird bath for a focal point, a combination of the Japanese maple with the burgundy color and the coral to burgundy impatiens really makes the view of the lake from their coffee table beautiful and enjoyable. This is a wider side garden. Now, I really think whatever makes you happy in the style of your garden is what you should go for. It's not for other people, it's for you. So if you want to have a bunch of fun objects around, so be it. And I think that's great. This person has vertical elements, this willow trellis, a column here, and even a gourd birdhouse, a focal point, and a nice restful sitting area on her side garden. Now, a lot of times side gardens are between houses, and particularly, I know in the area of Champaign, some of the side yards will have a swale, so a depressed area, so that when you get a big rain, you can have runoff of the water. Well, they've made this attractive by putting a, quote, dry stream bed here, but if there are heavy rains, that would help divert the water away, and even put a water feature right at the beginning of it. So do what you want. Now, do you have a small or a large side garden? This is from the Chicago Sheffield Garden Walk. This could be a very dark, depressing area to go back through, but these people knock themselves out with their side gardens. You've got these tall, dark walls, but they have flowering shrubs, hanging baskets in this very shady area, a trellis to lift your eye up, water features, statues, focal points, and every square inch of little bit of soil in the bottom is planted with colorful impatiens. This woman stopped to admire it, and that's what you want to do if you want to develop your side garden some. Another picture from the Sheffield Garden Walk. There's not a lot of soil here, but they've got an elevated column with a fuchsia plant on the top, some tiny hostas, and over here, again, not very much soil, but they put a broken pot, filled it with soil, and now have some geraniums right as it transitions to the backyard. Now we know that there are some great wide side gardens too, and this is a spectacular yard. This is from the top step looking toward the backyard, and then when you're in the backyard, the view back up. Everything about this is gorgeous. This is the plant collector's gardens, and I have always loved it. Lots of different small and large. You've got plants, you've got weeping forms, mounded forms, a play of color with chartreuse foliage, burgundy foliage, and overall, just a pleasure to be right there. You don't even have to be in the backyard, which also is good, but just the side yard is delightful, and it is amazing. I mean, this would make you stop and slow down and say, oh, what is that cool little plant? Or what is this tiny baby? So you can have a lot of entertainment on your side garden. Transitions. Transitions pull the flow from the front or the back of your yard into the side garden. So, and we think about that at the Idea Garden. This is a garden of one of what I consider a black belt master gardener. I always love visiting her place. And this is the front of her house. On that side, standing at the front and looking back, there's a grass plant path that goes all the way back. But once you're in the back, this is the view toward the front. There's a little walkway here. Can't you imagine sitting in that room and looking out the window at all this lush flowers, just a riot of bloom and color and delight, with a focal point of the whirligig there. You can see it from two different angles. So she's got a grass path. She had an exquisite taste in putting plant combinations together, and we'll be seeing quite a few of those. I'll tell you, it stopped me in my tracks when I went over to photograph her garden over one season. Transitions. This is blending the path to the back. There's our old cat, Mr. Bobcat. Love that baby. But there was a stone path that went out to stepper stones on the side. This is the side garden, and the poor little bonsai-shaped peach tree, because it's been there for a number of years, and the arborvitae were shading it, so it's reaching for the sunlight. But this is another master gardener's gardens. This is just as you exit the side yard, and she had a little bridge to enter into the backyard. And I thought that was quite a lovely idea as a transition. Another transition to the side, and the planting style is carried on all the way through the side. There's heuchera and hostas and combinations. I am going to stop and mention one of my favorite heucheras, which is Heuchera villosa citronelle. Now, there are a lot of hybrids of heuchera out now, but I try to always look for the villosa hybrids. If you turn the leaf over, it'll tend to be fuzzy on the back of it, much like the fuzziness of a lady's cheek. So villosa means fine hairs. That type of, the parentage of that plant usually makes for larger leaves and a lot tougher plant. I have been chagrined at a chartreuse heuchera called Lime Ricky because it inevitably gets brown spots in it and it looks just really wimpy about July. I would much rather have this heuchera citronelle or any of its other villosa cousins planted rather than some of the older versions of it. Paths are important. There can be paths of a lot of different materials. This is stone steppers in mulch. This is stone steppers with ground covers around it. And paths will take you on your journey, but also add mystery, like what is around the bend. Different types of paths. This is on the back of a garden, but off to the side. So I put it in here. Stone steppers on gravel into this lush planting area. And this is the same family's yard. This is a very busy side street with a fence to block off some of that, but grass path in the middle and gravel on the side and all these wonderful plants on a side garden. A wide one, yes, but wonderful. You can have a grass path that ends in stones, and here's a focal point at the end and some on the side. So it's up to you as to what you feel good about in planting isn't what you would enjoy. Slow the journey down with focal points, interesting plant combinations, and interesting objects. And we'll see some of those coming up. This is at the beginning of this person's side garden, and all this set of galvanized buckets with great combination of bold textures, fine textures, canna, this is probably kale, and a whole bunch of delightful colored blooming annuals. You can do a color echo. This is a painted gourd to be compatible with the heuchera frosted violet. And over here are some chives. The chives will bloom purple in the spring and set off that combination quite nicely. Here's another. This is a shade area, but look what all is going on here. You've got bolder textures with the lady's mantle and the hosta combined with a conocloa grass, which has a weeping form, and I love that chartreuse. This is sedum purple emperor and a cute little focal point of a pot with hen and chicks in it. You know, just do what you enjoy. Oh, I loved going over to all these gardens. Other great plant combinations, and a lot of these are mentioned in your handout. I don't know the names of every single specific plant, but I know some of them. I suspect this is a heuchera caramel. That's a hellebore fetatus with an interesting starburst kind of leaf. A large leaf brunera. The tiarella here has little tiny burgundy in its inner veinage and center, which pulls out the color of this purple heuchera, and I think epimedium in the back here. Then on the right side, you've got various hostas and with different colors, again with a purple heuchera. And so this combinations with color and textures can make your side garden more interesting. Interesting objects will slow you down as you pass through. Tiny mini hostas planted in a holy rock, or this combination with the heuchera I mentioned before, hostas, and a little moss turtle with hen and chicks on it. Art objects are fun sometimes. This is the squirrel. I want that. This is Joyce's garden. I need that. And then the peacock. They're both fun objects hidden in the back of the yard. Sometimes you can do incredible plant combinations. These on both sides are from the same garden, and she would stack her plants so they had a height to it. But look at the combinations. This is Astrantia Moulin Rouge with Sedum Purple Emperor. The burgundies are picked up there. An upright shape right here with Veronica, and the light, airy froth texture of Northern Sea Oats. And over here is a PG hydrangea, just starting to get the pink tinge on it, which brings out the purple barberry, and also the lace cap hydrangeas. I don't know the specific name of that hydrangea. This was many years ago I took these pictures, but it would be something like the Let's Dance series. But what else do stacked plant combinations do? Well, they also can screen you from the neighbors. You don't always have to have a fence, and that's exactly what these areas did. What a great thing to look at. Other screening from the neighbors. Yes, you can put in arborvitae, which gives you privacy on the patio from the neighbor's house, which is right here. But another reason to have that screening there is we did not want to look out our living room window into their bedroom. So we got those arborvitae to grow, and they did a good job of screening it. Fences can be great. You can adorn them with various objects if you want. But it's nice to have your own private backyard. Now this yard, and I hope most of you have visited the Schroeder's yard, but on the left is a little bit before, and then this is after several years of growth. But they have just about everything here. A delightful, sturdy path going through that leads you around to the backyard. They replaced the Japanese maple with a shade structure to help out with some of the utilitarian uses of it. But look how they have color echoes in the pots. This little hosta baby is called, now I'm going to forget. I'm going to look it up. It's on your handout, but it's Ripple Effect, I believe. This bigger one is Navajo. This is the Chamaecyparis obtusa shrub, which gives you greenery in the winter. And a red twig variegated dogwood is really grown now, but this is a very pretty combination. I love the Chamaecyparis because of its globby texture compared to other things. And it is nice that there's a fence there because the fence will tend to protect it from severe winter weather. But she's got all this going on. It's a pleasure to walk through the side yard. She's got her utility area there of storage for different things, but it's also neat and tidy. And it's ready for the hosta plant sale. So they had hosta plant sales a lot, and they line them up here. But gosh, as you transition around, there's a spectacular backyard, but it's awfully pleasant to be on the side yard too. But wait, that's not all. Here's the other part of their side yard. There's a secret path going back to a focal point of turquoise table and chairs. And what a delightful place to sit for coffee. Right here, you've got all the different colors, foliage textures, all the way weaving back out to the backyard, a flower box mounted on the fence, a mirror on the fence here because it'll open up the area or widen the area. And even the rain barrel is a green color, which blends in fairly nicely with the arborvitae. So function, utility, and here, enjoyment of your side yard. It might be helpful to frame the view. On the left is from a botanic garden, and they have hanging gourds on this giant arch, but you can simulate the same thing with an arch trellis and a vine growing up it and a path through the side. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and go into what I've learned from my yards. On the left is Illinois, and on the right is the backyard for us in Michigan. I was so excited to move to Michigan. I thought, great, we're going to have sandy soil. This is very heavy clay soil, and doggone it, this is heavy clay soil and does not drain well either. Both yards were like that. So as you notice, we've elevated the garden beds here and elevated them there too. This used to be a swamp whenever it rained a lot, even though it's very high above the lake. We put drainage in and now that's better. And I don't usually lose my shoes in the swamp in the backyard now. But here's some things that you might want to think about. The first thing is practicality in the soil. It's nice to check a pH on the soil. And if you have heavy clay soil like here, we got real mad and dug some up this years ago and got rid of it and then replaced it with compost and other good topsoil. But that's early in my days of gardening. I got so mad. There was a hunk of gray clay. Yeah, there was a lot of gray clay in our yard. I dug it up and squished it into a little pinch pot, took it out to a local pottery shop, had it fired, and then I got control over the clay that way. At least I thought I did. In our Michigan yard, it's heavy clay, and then they spent about a year running over everything and compacting the soil. So then it really does help if you can amend your soil and loosen it, and or put drainage in or raise the beds. Now, our landscaper in Michigan, he said the reasons why our beds was hot or our beds were so wet was because they had added a ½ inch of compost. And he said, that's just sucking up the water. Well, that was baloney. Practicality, drainage. Well, this looks okay when we first put it in, but there was a big wind and these shifted and we had to dig up the base of the trellis and there was standing water down there all the time. It had not even rained recently. So there was lousy drainage through this from the years of compaction. We did put drainage things in, and if a landscaper tells you that drainage tile will drain water if it goes up, that is baloney too. I found that in one of the areas. I said, no, you got to correct this. Drainage water should go down. And I'm sure all of you realize that. What about other things? Practicality. Critters. We have rabid rabbits in Champaign and in Michigan. Mad squirrels. In Michigan, I have a whole herd of Bambis. They're cute and adorable and eat so many things. And then chipmunks. Chipmunks can be pretty obnoxious also. They're also called timber tigers, I heard, because they like to run in and out of rocks and timber, and they will eat just about anything they can get their hands on, or five-striped ground squirrel, but we just kind of call them chipmunks most of the time. It's easier. And what else do we have? Well, we have sand cranes in Michigan. I went out to get the newspaper, and there they were, those little turkeys, because what they do is they're phenomenal in rototilling the garden. And my slide is stuck there. This is what they do to people's front yards. They just come by and shred it all up okay. We are going the wrong way. I'll just tell you the rest about the sand cranes. Well, there it decided to go back. Isn't that nice? Anyway, what they shredded up my ground cover on the lower level 3 years in a row, just took out 3 to 5 feet of it and tossed it into the grass. So yeah, they're interesting, but doggone it, stay away from my yard. For sand cranes, a fine fishing line strung on the outside of your beds will help, but that will not help deer. In our subdivision, we are not allowed to have fences of any kind. So from now on, this is not a fence. This is decorative trellis, and it happens to have deer netting on the inside. That's not deer fence, that's deer netting. And there are my peach trees in my peach tree jail, but they aren't eaten, so I'm happy with that. Because this is what deer do to, for instance, arborvitae. They make popsicles out of things, especially in the wintertime. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of Hosta lovers here. When you find something you like, so you get it in every color, hostas are wonderful. I love hostas, but when you have a wandering band of hungry deer walking by your backyard, how are you going, or your front yard, how are you going to protect it? Well, I'm going to get a close-up of an area here. I have hostas planted here, along there, and many in the background too. I try to plant mostly deer-resistant plants now, but oh gosh, I can't give up the hostas and the daylilies. I've tried every type of spray there is and put it on after rains. Didn't make any difference. I can't fence. I can't have an electric fence. The little fishing line didn't work. So what we came up with are half hoops, and they're hard to see, but this is taken from a distance. And they have bird netting strung over them. They're easy to take off in the fall. I really wanted to have a few daylilies. When I first moved to Michigan, I thought, oh, Michigan, daylilies don't ever bloom. And then I went out and took a close look. Well, what the deer do is they very daintily come in and munch only the bud tips. So they leave all the leaves, and they didn't bloom because they were being eaten. But I've got half hoops around the outside of this. And these tall stakes, I have a connection in your handout. They're from Gardener Supplies. There's a little ball in the top that you can unscrew and then drape bird netting over it to give it the height that my daylilies don't grow through. So that's worked out pretty well, but I'm only doing that in certain areas to my most favorite plants. Okay, next shift. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Illinois garden, and then after that, the Michigan gardens. Illinois garden with raised beds and a path around to the back. So what's on that side? At first, when we move, I move furniture and I move my plants. So we moved from one area of Champaign to the other, and I just filled this up with plants I wasn't interested in, really. It was full, it wasn't interesting. I had a climbing rose, but this is on the east side, and climbing roses really would like more sun. So a couple things we did do right. This was a wet area back here, so we put in steppers, which then flowed right in to the rock and stepper path that goes all the way around the back of the house. We also put a board-on-board slatted fence around the air conditioner, which made the area more attractive. And this front panel could lift off. There were latches on this side and this side, so you could just lift this right off in order to service the air conditioner. But in the meantime, it looked okay. Over time, though, I added more color to the foliage, more objects. We put a climbing hydrangea on the side trellis and took the rose away, and also this clematis, which would bloom in the lower part of it. There are several clematis I've mentioned in the handout that will do better with a bit of shade. This is Comtesse de Bouchard, and it was gorgeous when it bloomed. And we added a couple objects and such, and a blooming hydrangea that did do okay in the shade. This is the transition at the end of that path leading out to this backyard and the view of the backyard. These peach trees, as I mentioned before, were struggling for light, but they were still very productive. I had 3 of them on the back east side. And as you enter into the main yard, the arborvitae screen is over here. A couple colorful objects. This is Hosta, Great Expectation. That was a great plant to look out our side windows at. It was just remained beautiful all summer. Dicentra Gold Heart for some chartreuse and a fine texture. But I'll draw your attention to this plant. I love it. It's Corydalis lutea. And it's one of the very most long blooming perennials there are. If it gets a site that's happy, part shade and moisture every now and then, not soaking wet all winter, but it'll happily reseed, and it's a well-behaved little plant with tiny yellow blooms. So these 3 peaches, they all ripened at a different time. It made for a lot of peach cobbler and fresh eating. And these are some of the apples from the other side of my yard. And then the transition, looking back to the side yard with the air conditioner fence, which we planted some bold texture, Hosta, Virginia, and fine texture, the Dicentra again. And Mr. Bob always liked to model in that focal point of the mirror, made it a bit more interesting coming around. This is the west side. It got more sun, so I could do more on that side. But this just shows you an early spring before most things are up. The garage driveway a small concrete sidewalk to the back, which is continuing here, and then it transitioned into stone and rock, a trellis at the very back to pull your eye through, some height with this pyramidal structure here, and this was supports for the espalier apple tree we had. We had 4 different apples on that. Oh, I meant to mention that this side fence, that fenced-in area had a specific use, and that was to keep the critters out. A lot of rabbits, and the board-on-board slat fence is nice because the wind can still come through it. And between all of that, including the gate, we had chicken wire. So it would, the chicken wire would sweep down here. So it did a good job of keeping the rabbits out of the garden. This is as you come around the side garden, and then the front of it, the entry, with clematis for some height here. Outside of the garden, a window box, and let's open the gate. A repetition of the yellow Happy Returns daylilies from outside in. A focal point at the end I mentioned, and here's the apple tree in bloom. This is what I grew on the side trellis, which was the rose Zephrine Drohan, which is nice because as you come through the fence, you don't want to be snagged by thorns if a wayward branch comes over. That rose does not have very many thorns on it. And I combined it with the clematis here, a Viticella clematis. Oh, I have to look that one up too. I can't remember all of them. It's on your handout if I can't remember it. Oh, that's Madame Julia Coravon. But there's several other Viticella clematis that I like. And I highly recommend the Viticella because they are much more resistant to the clematis wilt. And they all have about the same pruning recommendations. It's hard for me to remember if they're group 1, group 2, or group 3 in pruning for the clematis. These you can all cut off about 3 feet and you're done. And I like that. So I tend to grow the clematis Viticella. They don't have the biggest blooms, but they certainly are more hardy. This is a view from the back toward the front, mostly flowers here with the apple tree, decorative supports for raspberries. I had fruits and vegetables in here too, and tomatoes because I like tomatoes. I'm waiting for it to advance. It'll probably be doing 2 and then shock me. No, it's doing nothing. Oh, okay. Let's see if it'll go fast. No. Joe?
Right.
It's not. Oh, yep, it went fast. Boom, boom. There. Oh, golly. Anyway. So this is the herb area over time. I had a bunch of herbs here. Early on, they looked like this. Oh, it's just advancing when it wants to. I don't know what's going on. I apologize. Anyway, let's get past this. There. Color echo of different focal points, the herb area again. Later on, I had edible pansies, lettuce, put a bunch more herbs in here, had a moss rabbit, and I started doing concrete leaf castings. And what I tried to do is do a color echo of these colorful leaf castings to blend with the annuals I put in between the basil and lettuce. But why is this piece of fence elevated here? Because behind it is storage for compost, wheelbarrows, and all the miscellaneous supplies that we have. So it kept it out of view a bit. Then we had a big plant move to Michigan. I just went around, dug up everything I liked, and you couldn't tell when we left. But I used old laundry baskets, drilled holes in the bottom, and put landscape fabric in them. It worked very well. We stacked them all up. Yep, we moved our furniture and we moved my plants, and they did pretty well. Now, this is the Michigan garden. I only have a side garden on one side. The other side is way too steep to do it. And there is quite an incline. There's a big hill coming up here. But we tried to carve out an area to try to remain flat for my vegetable area, knowing that I had deer there. And this would be the only place in my yard I'd be able to grow edibles without them interfering too much. I brought starts from the peach trees in Illinois. I put 3 little starts in, figuring may the best peach win. And we finally did have a winner, and I cut down the other 2. This is a Spaldier apple tree I bought, and that has 6 kinds of apples in it now. So in the start of planting this, this is the transition coming around and then leading to this area here, which is not fenced because the HOA doesn't want a lot of fences. But I have iron gates at the front and back, a trellis. This is a rebar holding heavy duty deer netting. And I have that netted in, but not fenced in, so I can grow something that they don't eat. The peach tree jail you've seen before, which is here. And as you go on down, there's steps going to the lower level, but there's arborvitae as a screen for the neighbors, a low care area here. I've got some structures in, and I use this for my summer storage of amaryllis bulbs. After they bloom in March, keep them inside, and when I can, I'll put them outside, and they look pretty good most all of the summer there. A neighbor cat, Cosmo, comes over and patrols for chipmunks. Bless his heart. But this is the view down with Cosmo's got his eye on a chipmunk. Low care liriope there, liriope muscari, one of those plants that they'll plant at the St. Louis Zoo because kids can trample on it. It's a tough ground cover, and it'll do in part shade and sun. So yeah, I planted that there. But this is the view of the backyard. And as you come down the steps, that's what you see. Looking from the top of the steps back, I've got utility, air conditioners, compost piles and such, and a little bit of privacy there. Before and after the drainage was installed, plants were not doing well here. Installed drainage, amended the soil, raised the beds even more so they would dry. Oh, there's a chipmunk trap. You don't see that. Sorry. And later on, this is the view where the outside of the beds are raised. I've got compost and kitchen doors, so I can come right outside and harvest the herbs. Now the transition from the front going around to the side with iron gate, peonies outside and inside, framing the view with the trellis. And this is another Viticella clematis that I actually learned about from the Idea Garden. I love it. It's Betty Corning. It has these sweet little nodding bells, which will flutter in the wind, and it blooms a lot longer than most clematis that I've seen. But again, the raised beds, and I have this area stuffed. Entrance from the outside in 2019, hydrangea, I think this is Annabelle, it's not Invincible, growing bigger all the time. And some lilies on the inside because they'll eat it. Now, what else do I put inside this guarded, this critter protected area? Well, I put fern leaf peonies in there, and here they are blooming in May. They're in a protected area. I know that deer don't usually eat regular peonies, but voles can, and I figure the fewer critters I have coming after this plant because it's special to me. These are fern leaf peonies I got from another distant relative. They were originally brought by my second great grandmother from Baden, Germany in 1852. And there she is, a determined little German woman that decided not to listen to her husband when he said, you can't take anything else. So being a good gardener, she decided she would take the fern leaf peonies and not listen to her husband. They are little thin tubers like skinny yams. And the story was handed down for many generations is that she sewed them in her petticoats. I don't know how that worked for the 6 to 8 weeks, but evidently it did because then she took them up to northern Iowa. I planted these when I got some starts of them in hardware cloth wire baskets so the voles don't eat them. And they evidently do like them. They bloom every Mother's Day. And she used to say it reminded her of her mother back in Germany. And for that, I protect them. Here they are. They're exquisite. But here is the fern leaf peony as I moved it in a hardware cloth basket. And you could try this for a few of your other special plants that voles eat, hostas or echinacea, some of those others that stupid voles want to eat. It does seem to protect them fairly well. So what do I do with the Michigan yard? Well, only this front part of that side garden has enough sun to grow vegetables. There is some shade from the house in the beginning of the morning, but I do get enough sun to grow. And I've tried everything in there, corn and carrots and potatoes. There's some raspberries that we're starting here. I love tomatoes. I grow as many as I can, and potatoes in the ground, just anything I can get in there. I grow 3 kinds of raspberries. Here's the 6 grafted espalier tree. There's some of the different types of apples. Here's a hint on if you do have an espalier tree. The apple cultivars don't always blossom at the same time. And in Michigan, they tend to have cool, wet springs, so the pollinators may not be out a lot. So I sometimes will help them. And if there's blossoms on the tree, I'll take a paintbrush, go from one to another. It's a small tree. I can reach it all. And I do enjoy getting some apples at least. Several kinds of raspberries. This is Kiwi Gold. You may not have heard of that before. I think it's better tasting than Ann, which is another gold raspberry. Heritage is my all-time favorite raspberry. It's the best taste. And here's an example of the surviving peach tree. I left the one that was a good producer. I'm down to one now. Kiwi Gold. And the reason I put this slide in is because I couldn't find it at the beginning of COVID. The only place that had it was Walmart, and they shipped it to me in 2 days. They came beautifully boxed, well taken care of. So gosh, I guess Walmart could be a source for some of our plant material too. And this is the 2020 view looking from the backside of the vegetable area front, just crammed with everything I could get in there. It has utility, and that's the main use. So harvest. With this elevated area, we now plant the beans and carrots along the side here because I can sit there and pick them easier. It's better for my arthritis. And certainly my granddaughter, Erica, can get in there and help me do this chore. She loves the potatoes though. Snack peppers I've tried. Here's something, if you have a small area like I do, and you want to grow sweet corn or a patio or a container, the On Deck is the name of a patio sweet corn that does very well. It doesn't have huge ears, but they're big enough and they're very enjoyable. Oh, our grandkids loved them. A couple other plants that I loved. I know this isn't only about side gardens. I'm convinced that mascati is the best French green bean because it blooms and produces earlier and longer. It's not as tall a plant. It doesn't tend to flop open. It's delicious and it's just the best bean ever. The Yukon Gold potatoes, I enjoy planting those also. Now, I've run the trial programs at University of Illinois for 20 years or 21 years now. And so I always like to try out different things. I've tried out several different kinds of carrots in this clay soil. The Nantes taste the best. They're not the longest in my soil, but I think they're great. And there's one day's harvest, a couple apples and a bunch of herbs in there too. So I wrote all of these things down that I like. I do have problems. If this is a small area and the only place you can grow vegetables, problems like tomato blight, a fungus that will splash up and kill the lower part of your plant. There is an early and a late blight. We get into terrible trouble with this with the cooler days and the rain in Michigan. So I've been trying many things. The red disc of the base only helps slightly. I've tested several different types of blight-resistant tomatoes out. Some do much better. I grew some in pots with a drip irrigation. That was pretty good. And I tried to mostly do watering from the bottom, not splashing the water from the top. And in the fall, remove all the leaf material. Well, part of the problem is with tomato blight is that you're supposed to be able to not plant tomatoes or potatoes in the very same area. And you want to have that separated by years. Well, I don't have another space. So I'm doing everything I can. This is sun gold planted in a pot. It did pretty well. It only had a mild amount of blight, but just because it's in a pot, it's up from the regular soil, it did better. And I am convinced that sun gold is the best tasting tomato there is, even though it's a cherry. This is chocolate cherry. That was very good. And another one I found that's excellent is Parks Whopper Improved. I can't stand it. I've been doing trials on blight-resistant tomatoes to try to find one that's good. The Brandy Wise is a special hybrid. It's not brandy wine, but it is from the heirloom and a hybrid that has some blight resistance. It had a little bit of cracking. I tried Legend. It was just okay in flavor and taste, although some of the first tomatoes are huge on Legend. And this is Park's Whopper Improved. Those are nice, clean tomatoes with a good taste. I tried several different tomatoes last year. Galahad did pretty well also. So I would recommend Brandywise Whopper, even though it's not labeled for blight, and Galahad. Spring of 2020, the stupid timber tigers came in here. I was gone 4 days. They ate 96 beans. I was very mad because I had double netted this area. These are baskets that I put over my heuchera to protect them from the deer in the winter. And I had even lined them with bird netting, and still these jerks got in there and ate it all. So I went nuts. I don't know why they didn't eat that one. And materials were in short supply last year, so I did not have all black. It doesn't look good, but I made hardware cloth. This top lifts off to be able to pick the beans. And then these are panels that if I want to, I can lift them off. And I replanted them. I finally did get beans. I was much happier. And I'm leaving those things on because the chipmunks are awful. Almost at the end now. These are some fun things that I put in your handout too. This is Tice's homegrown produce. And they have, evidently they have beer and t-shirts and aprons you can get, but I love the apron. And another slogan that you can order from them is Gardening Hall of Fame. And of course, that is good for Mother's Day or Father's Day, depending upon your gardener. So that's the panorama of the utilitarian and edible garden I have now. Well, my kidnappers returning me after listening to me talk about plants for 2 hours. Now, you probably feel that way now, and I hope you've been able to have your lunch. But if we do have time, I'm going to try to fit in a spectacular garden that has a wonderful side garden. I photographed this years ago. This is the front of the house, 2 Chamaecyparis mops, a trellis structure. You come weaving around and go to the front of the house. It's on a busy corner street in Champaign with lots of traffic going by. But here is the delightful entrance into the front of the house with a hidden garden, a bird bath, and then winding around the sidewalk into the front door. I don't know what the Amazon guy thinks of having to go through that, but wait. What's on the side? This. And here's the overall view. This is the garden that she has beautifully done. So here's a super busy street, another side street. She has drought tolerant plants that are going to take that very high heat up near the concrete, an upper garden and a lower garden. And in it, she made the most of it because she's got color, foliage, textures, groupings. This is an example of the upper side garden, daylilies, echinacea, aruncus, which is goat's beard, color combinations to boot. And this is looking the other way. That's the busiest street right there. They can sit in their porch and look out at all of this. How great is that for a side garden? And woo, the path on the side garden is a sidewalk. Yep, but it works. This is the lower garden. All sorts of combination of plants, the textures and foliage, and all you do is follow the path to enjoy this. I got so excited about some of these pictures that I had to go out and try to find the comfrey right here, the variegated Axminster Gold. I begged a porn and she gave me some. She's the nicest woman in the world. It doesn't get eaten by deer. I'm so happy. But variegated form, this is Yucca Bright Sword with chartreuse contrasting with the gorgeous cannas, Canna Tropicana Black. Everyone needs this. Then this is a prickly little plant here, Erigium. I never will say that, Erigium, with bright blue balls of spikes. But look at all the different colors, textures, combinations. Rudbeckia in the back. Great place to walk by. And this is what I ended up planting last year because I was so enthused when I saw these pictures. Ligularia with the bold, big texture of leaf. Britt Marie Crawford, Burgundy, compared to the comfrey, Axminster gold, the bright, wonderful canna over here, and then the pot colors in the back, the orange and red monarda and red lilies. I don't know the exact name of those, but it certainly is nice, and you could try to copy that type of thing. She stuffed in wonderful annuals, variegated nasturtiums, which are edible, some annual gomphrena, a mix of zinnias, and this is an earlier picture. This little willow structure later in the year had hyacinth beans, burgundy, growing on it, along with one of my favorite small shrubs, Hypericum allberry purple. It may die down to the ground for you some years, but it has yellow flowers in the spring, followed by these orange berries and a purple tint to the leaves. It's a great little shrub. Edibles, kale redboar, the variegated nasturtium, and red vein sorrel here. It's got little red veins, and when you're up close, you'll see that it is very nicely contrasted with burgundy plants or pink plants also. So she just had color, texture combinations all over the place. And this, bright red lilies. This is the Lictrum Rochambleu, a tall, airy plant, and it will self-seed a little bit, but I like it for the height. I'm thinking probably that was Heliopsis in the back. And just this, it's more subtle, but it has a great combination of textures here. I think this is probably the Heuchera Palace Purple with its blooms, a red monarda, and bronze fennel. Bronze fennel is edible. It gets tall, it has a feathery foliage, and it will reseed a bit, but it's fairly easy to take out. She combined flower forms, the globe shape of drumstick allium and the echinops over here, along with daisy-like plants, daisy-looking plants, the echinacea here and here. But so different flower forms were used. The upper sidewalk garden, the colors repeat, and she had the stacked plants that I talk about. Repetition of color, the chartreuse of the variegated sedum, Tradescantia sweet Kate, combined with blue-green color of the spruce and donkey tail spurge. Oh, and then the chartreuse of the yucca bright sword. So it just is, you walk 2 feet and there's something else great to look at on a side garden. More color and texture combination. Variegated miscanthus grass with ravens, Anthriscus ravenswing. If you don't know about this, this is a plant I really love. It looks like a little dark burgundy fern. It's here and here. And in the spring, it sends up these flower stems that then dry out and form seeds. I just cut it off here, take the seeds around and sprinkle it in part shade to a little bit of sun areas, and it'll look like you've got dark burgundy fern-like plants there. It's shown here with variegated liriope. Being a dermatologist, though, I will say that any umbelliferae plant, the one that has dill look or Queen Anne's lace or this Anthriscus, you do want to be careful and not handle that. Get the sap on your skin combined with sun, you can get a rash. But there's no problem at all if you just wear gloves when you snip it. Her backyard was wonderful with color echoes here in her artwork and the blues and purples, but her side yard was also exquisite, and her dogs thought so. A big thank you to all the master gardeners who let me photo and enjoy their beautiful gardens over the years. And an ending slide, nothing like coming back home and cracking open a 6-pack. And gardeners know that means a 6-pack of plants. Okay, I am done.
And that was so good. Okay, so a few questions came through. Where is this bonus garden that you were just describing?
That was Joyce Fennings. I'm gonna stop sharing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Joyce Fennings' garden, and it's in Champaign. Oh boy, I'm not I can't remember the street right now. I haven't lived there for a bit. I don't think it's up there anymore. Joyce moved. She did come back to town, I heard. She's quite a plants woman. And it's on Springfield, and that's about all I can tell you from now. You'd have to go and try to find that White House, but she's not there anymore, so I don't know what's left of her garden.
Okay. Yeah, Emma Durante's mentioned Springfield and Willis, maybe.
No, might be.
So, okay. More questions. Anne or someone, how about a program on how to make concrete leaf castings? They are beautiful.
I used to do that. It's a lot of work if you have people actually do it in person. Rather exhausting. I think I made a YouTube video many years ago before YouTube was really popular, and it's probably still on that. I look kind of like, oh gosh, Julia Child. It was a real hot day. Judy was helping me do a movie of it. There's a bunch of stuff on YouTube you can get, but I did make one on YouTube. But oh, it was hot in our garage anyway.
Yeah,
and I have in the past given programs on that.
Yeah, and we did have, and when that comment came through the chat box, I went back to our YouTube channels to try to find it. I couldn't find it. So if we can find it, we'll pass it along. Nancy Crawford mentioned
mine, the real old one, and I had complaints people didn't like the music on it. Because this was years ago. I think it was under my YouTube channel. I don't do much on YouTube. It's Dermgood. It's either Dermgood, DERMGOOD, or it's under Dermgood 1 that I had concrete leaf castings. But there's other people that have done good ones on YouTube also.
Okay, great. Thank you. Someone asked, how do you keep your mulch neat along the stone path?
Just sweep off. I had stepper stones going through the mulch, and I would just take a broom out there and sweep it off every now and then.
Okay. Somebody said they're afraid to plant too close to the house due to water seeping into the basement. Do you have any comments or suggestions on that?
Yeah, see, we raised an area next to the garage, and we put drainage pipes behind it, then draining down and out the ravine on the side, because you don't want to back up a lot. You don't want to plant over the foundation concrete blocks. In other words, you don't want to go up onto the siding, because you could get some drainage into the house then.
Okay.
That is a viable concern.
Yeah. Oh, and Pam, our friend Pam Hone, found the link.
Yeah, but it'll be funny looking at it. I look like Julia Child. I'm sweating buckets. I'm like, wah!
I can't believe you just ran through all that in an hour, and that's all the questions for now. Jenny was going to close it up for us.
Anne, thank you so much for the program. It was awesome. We would like for anybody that has any suggestions for a program or something they'd like to see to put it in the chat box, and we will make sure that the right people get to see it. And thank you so much for everybody showing up. And thanks again, Anne. It was awesome.
Drive safely out there. Be careful. And I'm glad you came. Thanks. Bye-bye.